What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Today we have two brand new Cosmonarchs duking it out against one another on some of our longest serving maps in our map pool. This is Cosmonarchy, and it's a special day when I get to welcome new people into the fold. So let's do it. Genesis Y will start us off a map by BittyB. Noiturne is going to be our black Zerg in the bottom right. And Pisens, that's how you say his name, is in the top right as our Maroon Terran? Indeed it is. All right. So, a little bit of background on these players so far as I have observed thus far. There you go. A little bit of less repetition, even though I said far both times. Those are the little inside wheels that the casters among my populace, among my community will like to know is, what do you do about word choice, Pronogo? Well, sometimes you flub it, and then you try to restate what you said so that it sounds more sophisticated. But as we have a Kagerant coming down, which is likely turning into a Larvosk for Noiturne, and Pisens is going to be forward stockading by the choke point here, I can talk to you guys a little bit about these homies. Noiturne has joined us, as Pisens has, for Weekend War already this past weekend. And that's in fact when they first played their Cosmonarchy games, I believe. That was their sort of I was trying to think of like a good way to explain, like, oh yeah, this is like the first time they're doing something. I guess that's where they took the training wheels off now, and they're starting to face off against each other in proper 1v1s. I say proper as if Cosmonarchy was originally meant to be a 1v1 game. Actually, FFAs are more true to its original spirit. But Noiturne is going to be going for a pool follow-up, and we already have an anchor being constructed, so very defensively minded here is Pisens. Very stark contrast to some of the actions and antics that we have seen beforehand, right? Like, he makes the one Maverick, he makes another Maverick. I guess he might expand after this. He's starting to get a little bit of Vespene. We'll see about that. If I just had to tell you guys who I thought was going to win in the set of 4 games that we have to cast here between these two players, I would probably lean Pisens, actually, even though I sorted him below, like to the right of Noiturne, which would tell you, based on the hierarchy that I've got here, that Noiturne is the favorite. And the reason I did that is because he's been training with Krankendow, one of our more established legacy players, you can say. A guy who's been around for a good while, very passionate about the project, and we do appreciate that. He even got Noiturne to join him in Clan No GG, which is the replacement, the ancestor? The descendant of Clan Oops, originally founded by Hit 'em Up. So we got the Hydra's Den follow-up, still on one base here for Noiturne, and not really too many combat units now as he sets up for a second Larvosk, and I think that's probably because he scouts a very conservative opening from his opponent, with Pisens looking to expand relatively soon. I will say that Pisens has seen a little bit of action as Terran, a tiny bit of action as Zerg. I don't know about his exposure to Protoss, and he does seem to be a Terran main. The only thing I can see so far that is like hands down something that's worth commenting on, I think, as far as like if he was looking for advice, is, he'll figure out like build orders and meta stuff. That's not really that much of a problem, but you definitely want to keep your worker production going as Terran and Protoss as long as you can. There gets to a point where in certain build orders specifically you're trying to cut, but we're not there yet. We're just learning. We're just figuring out what units do and stuff, right? In fact, a relatively new Protoss player, Chairfiend, is also doing the same thing. I think all 3 of those homies, including these 2, found each other, found the community, found Cosmonarchy through Alaix Gaming's videos. So shout out one more time to that legend as a Mason goes down the first blood of the match. Because I believe the Droleth scout from Noiturne actually just got turned away by the anchor and didn't continue on. So if we look at this game state as Noiturne is capping his ridge over here with the Escagant, it looks to me like we've got a very small bio army here. He's adding a 3rd stockade. He's finished his ministry in the natural. So Pisens is going to be going for looks like maybe a sustain-oriented army with the Vestry add-on for a stockade that's going to unlock some healing. Noiturne's still yet to expand, is just kind of going for like Hydra quads, right? So these are the kinds of things that I'm used to seeing from more established players, is the idea of, okay, maybe if Pisens was one of our more established Terrans, when he makes this Watchdog, he'd actually lift it and move it into the enemy base so that he could scout it. That's the Watchdog scout. You may have seen that already if you've watched Cosmonarchy casts so far recently. That being said, we also probably wouldn't see like Stockade into Anchor unless you scouted in some kind of all-in, right? So that's like one point that's like, okay, maybe Pisens is playing more defensively. That's fine. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying these are the kinds of deviations we're seeing compared to the more, you know, ironclad, like hardcore meta players, right? That Watchdog does indeed finish. It looks like it will just be an outpost to stop drops or something like that from getting in for free. And yeah, I mean, Pisens is keeping up to speed in terms of like he's spending his money, he's waypointing his units across the map. They are getting caught a little bit here. That one Hurakan brought down dangerously low. There is a cleric here to patch him up. A couple more units here and there. Indeed, there is going to be an Ovaleth, and it will waypoint adjacent to that Watchdog, but it looks like Pisens has been cowed back towards his base. Interesting. We've got a lot of Quasilisks here. Noiturne almost doubling the army of Pisens in terms of the count, but even on workers after that last rotation of Droleths, this is the dangerous part about playing as Zerg, playing against Zerg, I should say, is that when you are the Terran player or the non-Zerg player, you gotta watch out for Zerg's ability to kind of hard eco after getting their natural secured, right? And this is without really any pressure from Pisens. He's got a couple of Mavericks pinched off to the side. We'll see what he can uncover from there, but I think he's just going to end up spotting a bunch of Quas. If he doesn't make the mistake of thinking that those Quas are the entire army of his opponent, then we might be in for an interesting move. Otherwise, he might just waypoint out here and then get caught at this little ramp cliff hill. There's probably a good technical term we could come up with for things like this. I used to call them ridges back in the day, and then we developed the Vespine Ridge, you know, so you can't really call them that anymore. But yeah, hill, edifice, we'll figure out something like that. Now, we are going to get a couple of sieves added here. These are the ridge caps for the Terran. And Pisens is going into double star pad as some kind of follow-up. This could end up being an Anseal stack, but I don't know if Pisens is that advanced yet in terms of his Cosmonarchy knowledge, so we'll have to wait and see. Mavericks having to stim backwards. They can indeed escape pretty easily from that. Overwhelmed by the sheer number of Zerg, and it looks like a third base might be in the cards for Noiturne. Yeah, he's heading to the bottom left for that as a whole gallivant of Droleths arrive. Looks like he's going to send those ones back to saturate his main a little bit more. And that will be at 5th Larvosk, so he'll go up to 7 larvae per 14 seconds. Looks like he was attempting a drop, and it will be caught by that Watchdog. Now, whether or not... Okay, yes, the Cyprians are already scrambling for it, and we do have 2 Anseals in production indeed. Not targeting the wounded Ovaleth might be a little bit of an unfortunate... Oh, never mind. I was going to say that'll let Noiturne unload his Quas, but doesn't quite get the first one off in time. He will get the next one, starting to raid those workers. And oh no, actually, there's been a grave error here from Pisens. I thought for sure he had this one taken care of, but he allows his Quas to try to chase that very low HP Ovaleth. And Quas are very good at dealing with Masons, so worker raids from Quas are a lot more deadly than like Zeth raids can sometimes be. You can't drill the Quas out the same way that you would like to. The Ovaleth just getting information here on the natural will probably get killed by some errant unit or another. And now we've got our Zerg player going to tier 2 on 65 workers with that big transfer over to his third base hatching now, up to 7 larvae per rotation. Oh, well, I would tell a lie. That's 8 larvae once that Larvosk finishes. So every 14 seconds, this man can make 16 Quasilisks, and he is going to do it, it looks like. Maybe I should start stepping into the ring a little bit more and try my Quasilisk-only builds for the homies out there to get acquainted. The more new players we have, the more commonly I guess I can do that stuff. 3Crow can do his Vassal-only builds. I can do the Quas-only builds. It's like Quas, and then I build Hatterosks everywhere, and then I also build circuits sometimes, for the rare situations where Quas do not do the trick. Now, a lot of the Zerg units here are going to find it a little bit difficult to stand towards, like, toe-to-toe with this Terran Bio army, but the Anseals are not covering the Mavericks here. Bit of a missed opportunity for Pisens to get a little bit more value. We've got 18 Izira cores being made at once. So clearly Noiturne had some cash to splash. He throws away a big portion of his army. He does clear out some of the bio. And you're going to see a very big turnaround here once those Izira cores really step towards... I mean, the Hurakans run the armor, and that definitely helps out. But yeah, we need to see a bit more of a critical mass of them deployed at the same time. And maybe Noiturne's figured that out. He's rolling through another one. He brings down the Anseals with them, which is not what you would expect. Another one just kind of waypointing out there, probably from that bottom left base. And yeah, I mean, If he doesn't trust in the heart of the cards, so to speak, he's not going to win this fight. But otherwise, Noiturne will dive forward. And if you close the gap on these bio units, they go down even faster. The Cyprians are the expensive ones. I wonder if that was intentional. It looked intentional that Pisens sends his cleric off to bide time. Get the... or to buy time, I suppose, to purchase time from the store. It's a microtransaction. You can do so for $3 a month on coffee. Now, the main thing I'm seeing here is the tech advantage is going to start to really shift over. So the Azira Core is just something you get from the Hydra's Den. It's a tier 1 unit. But the Azira Cores here have been enough of a bit of a burrow move and enough of a little bit of a surprise move to stop the bio from getting too much of anything done. Noiturne is going to get up to tier 2 technology. He's getting his Tethvith Swamp, his Calcure Lake. I think his Matravel Nest is already done. Unfortunately, another dead Ovaleth hits the ground, but there was nothing in it. And the Elkag Eteth is also complete, right? I don't know where it was made. Is it... He made his tier 2 tech down here. Nableim is coming to kill you in the form of Pisens. One Maverick has snuck around and is going to pressure this 4th base ever so slightly. I like the Cyprian flank coming in from downtown as well. Eggs getting killed. Atlas coming for Pisens. It's a little bit rough here. The Mavericks are going to stem, and they will bring down those tier 2 tech nodes. Now, we did get Convolusks and Vilgoricores out for Noiturne, so he used his Matravel Nest at the very least. I don't think he was able to use anything else, unfortunately, so his Alcag did not find any use. The counterattack with a horde of Iziricores, I don't think it's going to be enough to break through this choke point, but it might shut down this Ministry. It clears out the anchor at the very least. Yep, Ministry's going to go ahead and lift off. Meanwhile, last of the Bio Forces on the other side do get cleaned up by the Izzies. It's been an Iziracore monocomp for a little bit now, but Noiturne will be able to bust this once he deploys his tier 2 tech. He's got Quaz here. He's making a bunch of Lyralisks, which are very good at like kind of chasing units down. And their bounce attacks are pretty good versus Bio as well. They don't suck. The Quaz, on the other hand, well, I wouldn't say they suck in this situation. Cyprians do make a mince out of them if you can't put the Iziricores in front, because the Iziricores without any armor shred on the Terran side block the Cyprian shots, so you can't penetrate all those poor Quaz. So it's a little bit of a massacre here. Good thumbnail, good thumbnail material. We'll see if that ends up being the one. A couple of Vilgoricores are wandering around with their very excellent walk cycle that we absolutely must replace as soon as possible. And it looks like Noiturne is thinking about putting down another tech node. He can go for the Mutat Spire if he wants something that is new, but instead he wants the Matravel Nest again. Feels like that's a good one. Could be capping these nodes as well. That would be a valid option here. Although I will point out, it's unlikely. No, I think this is still fine. But there is one thing that I noticed about testing some maps fairly recently, is that you can't always cap the ridge if it's placed in an off-center location, which normally wasn't a problem, but we recently did achieve the ridge cap, right? So we want to make sure that those do end up being a thing that you can use. All right, we've got a pretty big stream of Zerg. Matravel Nest out pretty soon. Now, Tier 2 Bio is coming up with the captaincies. Pisens hasn't really been able to saturate his 3rd base, and he's very, very far behind on workers. He's not even saturated over here. He's got 8 workers left in his main base. He's actually got 17. Well, some of those are the gas miners, right? So 15 on the natural. So he's slightly oversatted on the natural for the baseline saturation, and he's definitely he needs to get on that move for the saturation there to get a little bit more money. You can see he's spending a lot of it, but he doesn't have a lot of it to spend. Now here comes the tier 2 with the Vilgoricores absorbing a lot of pressure, getting their Carapace Swarms to block more and more damage and shots. And the big money makers are going to be those Convolusks getting all kinds of bouncing and snare damage out. A couple of them do end up going down, but it's not going to be enough. The lift has to come out. And I don't know if there's really enough here for Pisens to be able to push this back. Noiturne does have a lot of units being made back at home, but are they even going to be required? Some of them are getting aggroed up here in a little bit of an unfortunate situation, as some of the claws were kind of idle and the other ones were blocking each other, so Noiturne not being maximally cost efficient here. A couple of Wraiths are heckling his 5th base, and there are some bio units kind of guarding it. It's just Mavericks. It's not going to be enough. I was going to say they're guarding the 4 o'clock position there, but you can't really be returning home and providing too much of a humongous value in the face of all of these units. And GG has to be called. Pisens will fall to Noiturne for game 1. Too much Zerg. We know that feeling. Zerg are here. So Noiturne scores his first dub. And Pisens asking for a rematch. Well, we know that they did indeed get that done. He says yes. And that's where we go to game number 2 to whet your appetite. I'm curious to see how these guys end up developing, because when you first start playing a game, like, okay, maybe you just like it a little bit. These guys have been grinding, especially Noiturne, it has to be said. So let's see if he can keep his momentum up high, or if Pisens kind of counter punches him there, maybe with a little bit more early aggression. Let's find out. We are on Muspelheim here by Week 7 for our second match of the 4. Noiturne, our Black Zerg, in the bottom left, is going up against Pisens, our Maya Blue Protoss Terran in the top right. Arrow Terran. Well, I got the race wrong, too. I'm going to go ahead and hang my head in shame for that one. I don't know what comes over me when I'm, like, really trying hard to activate my brain cells to remember the colors. You know what I'm saying? Like, somehow I think of, like, the last time I saw the color, I'm guessing, maybe? And that makes me think, oh, it's like that last time I saw this color, it was on a Protoss player, or maybe. That's the only justification I can provide myself for that one. So, you know, it is what it is. But we will have a closer to home stockade here for Pisens. This map is a little bit of an enigma for a lot of players, even though it was in our last Acropolis. So the Iron Foundry here is something that, by the way, Zerg can infest at tier 2. And either way, if you just blow it up or you transport over it or whatever, there's a back base over here that's pretty safe, but can be very harassable by air units. We've seen a lot of really cool ZVZs on this map, actually, come to think of it. Natural's a little bit more standard. I will point out that obviously it's kind of a distance to the choke from the ramp, so you can attack the natural and you can attack the ramp, but depends, because like most people don't like forward wall or anything like that at the time when this map was popular. Maybe things have changed now, we'll find out. Larvask into pool, maybe a little bit snappier here for Noiturne in game 2. Second stockade seems also faster for Pisens. He doesn't end up going for the anchor, preferring units for now. Moving across the middle of the map, we've got Pisens getting his spider sense going, you know, getting that scouting going. He does know to put his third gas miner on the ridge, so there is a little bit of game knowledge there. I don't know if that's just instinct, gamer instinct. Second Larvask on the way. So Noiturne seems to prefer the more, like, he's not going to go for multi-base gameplay straight out the gate. He also doesn't seem to set rallies on his production structures, or maybe he's like right-clicking the egg after. That would seem unlikely. We can just see, yeah. If you hold Alt, you'd see a production rally line if there was indeed a rally, right? But there is no rally. So, okay, we know there's no rallies. Noiturne doesn't do that. Maybe later on in the game he does. So it looks like we have double star pads straight out the gate here from our Terran Aspirant, or should I say Hotshot for now. Oh, I guess that's another thing that I can do is as we get more players, when I have like a long set of games like this, I will tell you guys what I think their ranks should be based on what kind of gameplay we're seeing from them, right? Like, I'm not going to reveal it beforehand. I'm not going to say, oh yeah, these guys, like, based on game 1, so-and-so is definitely class this. I'm not going to say that. I'll just reveal it at the end. So there's a little bit more storyline and narrative building there. And of course, I mean, if they end up going on a big improvement, or I guess regression after that, well, I always retain the right to adjust their skill level. Maybe I'm in error after one game series, but, you know, about an hour of Cosmonarchy, or however long it ends up taking to cast through the 4 games that we have here, that should tell me enough. You know, that should tell me enough. And maybe you guys can guess at home what you think their ranks are going to end up being. That could also be a fun game to get the viewers engaged, right? Like, what rank shall they be? So it's actually a double Trojan here. I wonder if Pisens plays Starcraft 2 more than anything else. I can't remember. I think Noiturne said that he first played Brood War pretty recently, and it was his introduction into the RTS genre. I think it was like 2016 or 2017. To me, that's very recent for Brood War. It's a very old game, right? It came out when I was 4, and I'm 30 now, so check me out on Instagram, I guess. Spoiler, I don't have an Instagram. That's why it's funny. The Hydrothan is about halfway complete here, but the drops are coming, and they're pretty well loaded, actually. They're only missing 1 potential infantry unit in. 2 Hurricanes and I guess that would make it quick maths here. 12, by the way, Mavericks. That's what I like to see. Big 12, by the way. So the follow-up is an Antseal, which I like. The Treasury expand is interesting. I don't know that he's cut workers. I wasn't paying too close attention, and I can't remember how many workers you're supposed to have at like minute X of the map. I don't have that level of knowledge yet. That's something I'll think about. I do like that he's being... I don't think it was necessary here, but I like that he's being a little bit cautious with it. He's like, okay, I'm going to be on the outskirts of his base because I want to make sure that I've got like my affairs in order at home and everything is good on that front. And I can be like, okay, we're all good there. Like, I'm not going to lose my drop because I'm not paying attention to it, right? If you know your weakness or your level of attention in multitasking, play towards that. And of course, try to improve it. But feel free to play towards that as well. I think that is a totally fine thing to do. Like, I'm familiar enough with Cosmonarchy. By the way, that's another thing is you're not going to be able to live up to your best RTS competitive performance if you are constantly like trying to double check and recheck knowledge that you may or may not have, right? Like if you're thinking about it in the perspective of, oh, okay, I can't remember what unit do I make now, or oh man, like what does this unit do? And you have to like stop and read something, or you have to remember a tech requirement or whatever. That's going to be a very different experience. Like once you get the unit mechanics down and the unit feelings down and that kind of thing, you're going to be in a much better position to show your strongest RTS gameplay, because up until that point, it's training. You know what I mean? Now, we are going to see a little bit of a push forward. Unfortunately for Pisens, I was just talking about knowing your limits. He ends up losing his Antseal. That might be really significant. Now, we don't see any Lachesis because there is no Zorka's Shroud. So there's no worries there. Pisens checks for a third base, doesn't see one. Now he's going to see about escorting his drops in. Now, this could be a very nasty timing attack. He could basically run into the natural, kill the workers there with his main army if he's able to push Noiturne's army back a little bit. Now, head-to-head, this Zerg army wins. But he's doing he's doing a good move here. He's kind of like keeping him interested. And now the drops are going to come in, and this is totally undefended. We've got two unmorphed Kagrants here. Noiturne only now paying attention to his main base under attack. He's got to burrow his workers instinctively, but you can stand on burrowed units to reveal them in Cosmonarchy. And so he unburrows them and then reburrows them. They cannot avoid the pain. He's lost a lot of workers, but, you know, Zerg can restore that pretty easily, right? So here we go, scooping him up. This makes me feel like Pisens is a StarCraft 2 player, right? He's got that medevac kind of strategy, I feel like, is what's going on here. So he's going to keep trying to elevate him in, leaving a couple of Mavericks to their grisly demise, but he's going to unload inside the mineral line. And I love that he's recognized that he's done a lot of damage. He's actually pulled his army back to his natural choke, and he's going to mass up for a more concerted effort versus his opponent, piecing him up. And Noiturne, he is about as discombobulated as that worker. Oh man, he's still losing a lot of ground over here. He's gonna have to pull back his army that was at his rally, try to figure out where he was, and the drop gets away. You can actually sync this back up with the rest of the force. You see another one coming in just to keep him interested as well, and saying like, hey, I'm gonna tickle you here just to distract you a little bit. Noiturne does pan his camera over there to try to catch that, but the big bio ball is coming on in, and Noiturne, he's got like, he still has 23 workers somehow, but most of them are not mining, it feels like. The Zeths get rallied up and minced. Those Mavericks didn't even look like they were stemmed and they were doing that much damage. More and more burrowed Drolats, it's not going to be enough. The Iziricors trying to stand tall. Hurakan's definitely adding a lot of value for the Mavericks to gun those Iziricors down. But even with a little bit of a stem, we would have seen the end of this Zerg player, it feels like. Maybe he can surprise us, but he's only got 2 pairs of quads in production. Still plenty of bio left in the tank. We got more units rallying in. 4 units at a time, including 4 Hurakans coming up. That's going to make a humongous difference to bust this position. So, yeah, big shout out there as he stims to get rid of some of these more units. Unfortunately, a lot of what Noiturne had there was being waypointed off of a rally, it looked like, instead of an attack move, and that looks like Pisens will strike back. That was a much more decisive game as well, it has to be said. I do think that that kind of gameplay, GGs are called, will almost always favor you in this kind of situation, right? Because you're in a spot where, as the Terran player, you're trying to dictate the pace of the game. Just like Noiturne was very comfortable in that last one, and the Terran was much more reserved, wasn't really gaming too hard, wasn't really being aggressive too heavily. No, Pisens had his moment, and it was off the back of those Trojans. Again, I'm thinking medevac. Maybe he's just got that drop style down in Brood War, but I'm thinking medevac from StarCraft 2. That's where my brain went. Let me know what you guys think, and we will be back for a part 2 tomorrow, so subscribe to the channel if you're not already. We'll find out what rank I'm putting these two players. Right now, they do seem pretty neck and neck, but that could change. We'll see. GG.